All right. Good evening once again. Welcome to Digitech Zeal. This is Python programming session. Okay, so I think to an extent I'm impressed with the turn up of the assignment. I know Clement has submitted his own, and some other persons has also done the same thing. Okay, so in our last class, we actually completed the advanced data structure in Python. We talk about lists, tuple, dictionary, and sets. I will also look at different associated functions that can be used to manipulate their elements. So, like I promised, we are entering Python functions in this section. So we'll start the function, because function is very wide, because after this topic function, we will start designing, customizing some application. So under the function, we'll look at general Python functions, how to create function, how to call function, function parameters and inputs. And then after that, we will go into what we call a control structure. So once we are done with the control structure, then at that point, it is safe to say we have completed the basic and the intermediates that we are in for. What we are going to be doing once we are done with these two topics, which are very broad topic, function and the control structure, we will start, we'll see how we can start developing some apps, right? So what we are learning since, we are actually preparing ourselves, trying to understand all the aspects of Python programming that we need to know before we can start, developing real life application that can solve a problem. So let's us dive in. Like I said, today we are looking at introduction to Python. Introduction to Python functions. So to start with, we would like to know what is function in Python programming. So let's define function. What is function? What is function in Python programming? So we can say a function is a reusable. I want us to take note of, because we are going advanced, or let's say intermediate now. This is intermediate and part of advanced. So I would like us to pay good attention, because we are going more logical now aspect of programming generally, not just Python. So reusable block of code. Reusable block of code that perform specific tasks. So this is simple definition of function. A function is a reusable block of code that perform a specific task. So let me break it down for us. There are about two keywords that we need to digest, that we need to understand before we can actually know why are functions used in developing application. Why are functions used in programming? Function is a major component of programming. In fact, there is no programming without what? Function. So there are two key words here I want to emphasize on. Reusable, which means that you can say function was introduced to make programming seamlessly. In other words, when you are writing a complex program or when you are developing a complex application, it is always structured in a way that when you start writing your code from the beginning, at some point in between or toward the end, some of the things that you must have written at the beginning or in between might still be involved. And this is one of the reasons why function is the best use case for that, because let's assume that you have a program that you have written or you are developing an application that are spanned across over 200 lines of code. What I mean, you can see that everything we have written, currently we are at line 244, all the way from line 1. You are now at what? Line 244. And there are a lot of things or functions that you must have created probably at line 100, at line 90, that you want to what? Make reference to at the particular point you are right now. So in that case, programmer uses function to group what? Set of codes. That is why we use the word block. The word block means what? Function is like a container that we are using to wrap set of tasks, such that whenever those tasks that must have been wrapped in the function are needed in the course of your programming, you can just call the name of that function instead of you rewriting the whole of that task. For example, let me use the application that we are all using, OP. A developer has created a group of code or set of functions and wrap them and name that function called transfer. Transfer. It is very easy. You just log into the app, you click on transfer, and then before you see it, the next person receive the money. There are a bunch of codes which are like the function we are talking about that must have been created and name them what? Transfer. So whenever you want to perform the task of transferring money, you don't need to write all those code again, because those code has been enveloped in a function and the function has been given a name. So that function can be recalled. That's why you can use that transfer button to transfer as many times as possible. Not each time you want to transfer, you call the programmer to write the function for transferring fund. I hope somebody is getting what I am trying to picture. Please, can you unmute? I want to get a response on what I've explained so far.
Yes.
Okay, because this
Yes.
is logical aspect of programming, so I need to expatiate so that you understand why are we using function, why programmer uses what? Function. So part of what I've explained, number one is that you can reuse the function. That is, you can take your time to write certain tasks that you want to perform and wrap them and save them in a function what? Block, such that when next you need those tasks, just call the name of the function and those tasks will what? Will react or respond automatically. So just to explain further, so I've explained the two words now, reusable and block of code. Reusable means that what? Function can help you to write tasks or group of tasks that can be reused elsewhere outside where you are currently writing it. So it saves you time where you will have been repeating writing of that code. You don't need to do that. Now, the next word here is a block of code. We must see function as a container. We must see function as grouping elements, which are used to group two or more what? Tasks. All right. So just to explain further, we can say that instead of repeating is part of what I've captured in my explanation. Instead of repeating the same, just to expatiate better, instead of repeating the same code multiple times, you define it once and call it where and call it whenever you need it. Whenever you need it. So that is another essential reason why we should use function when we are developing app. All right. Okay, so that's still aligned with what I've explained before. That's still aligned with what I've explained before. So now let's look at just a minute. So just to simplify it, let me attach this explanation. So think of a function like a machine. You know, if you are seeing function as a machine, what happens when you operate machine? You give it an input. It processes what? It and give you what? The output. So that is how function works. Every machine you see today is programmed, whether you like it or not. You click on the start button, then the machine starts. And then that means what? All the components will start what? Functioning once you turn it on. So which means that you must call the machine. The way you are calling the machine is you are turning it on. So that is how functions operate. Function will be created in a program and they will not be active until they are called. It's just like you having a child in the house. That child will sit in one place until you say, go and get me a cup of water. And then the child moves. So functions can be in your program without doing anything until they are called. So let's look at some of the reasons why functions are important. Number one, function help us to avoid repetition. So instead of you repeating tasks, rewriting your code, you can save your time using function concepts. It improves readability of code. It makes debugging easier. I don't think there's anybody here that does not understand what is called debugging at this point. Debugging is the process of fixing errors arising from your code. All right, bug are errors. So the debug then means what? You want to eliminate the error and end up making the application what? To function. Basic syntax of function. Let's look at the syntax. Remember, I always advise us that whenever you are learning any aspect of programming, understand the syntax, because the syntax has been established. The syntax are the set of rules that spell out the format of that function. So if we are going to learn how to write function, how to create function to perform tasks within our application we are developing or within our program, we need to understand the pattern, the format, which is the syntax. What are the rules that need to be adhered to for us to be able to create a working function? So syntax, I say basic word, syntax. Basic syntax of a function. Basic syntax of a function. Now, in Python, when you are creating a function, you have to use a keyword to define it. All right? Remember, I've explained to us a number of times what a keyword in programming is. A keyword is like an existing function. It's like an existing name that has been given to something built in the program. So if you don't follow that structure, if you don't reference the keyword, Python will not see whatever you are writing as a function. And that is the reason why I am taking my time to explain the basic syntax. That anytime you are declaring a function, the function declaration means you are initiating the function. There is a standard, and the standard is that you must start with what? The df what? Keyword. We are still talking about the structure or the syntax of declaring function. So you must start with what? With this. So this is what? The keyword for initiating the function, which also means introducing the function into the program. So that is the first syntax. The second one is that once you have defined your function keyword, followed by the function name, followed by the function. Every function you create, please must have a name. It is that name that will be used to call it whenever you want it to react. I hope I am still making sense. Can I get somebody else to answer me outside Mr. Clement? Let me hear from someone else. Are we following? Hope my audio is good.
Yes, it's clear.
All right, thank you. All right, so the next syntax is the what? The function name. The next syntax is the function name. So after the function name, in fact, the function name should be attached with parenthesis bracket. I am going to explain it once I'm done with the syntax, what this parenthesis bracket represents when you are declaring function. Then the next one is the block, The block is the group. So the block is usually represented with this. So once you have declared the keyword, the function name, then you declare the what? The block. And the block is represented with this calling what? Braces or braces, whichever way you want to call it, or calling brackets. All right? Then whatever the function is going to do, what would the function do should be inside what? The calling what? Bracket. So now I can say what? Task to perform. Task to perform here. So you can see the syntax now. The name, the keyword, df, which is definition, followed by the name of the function. Then after the name of the function should carry the parenthesis bracket. Immediately after it, the calling block or the calling bracket, which form the what? The grouping or the group what? Element. And then whatever you want the function, whenever it is called, what do you want the function to do? Should be programmed inside the what? The calling bracket. All right. So let's look at an example here. Let's assume that we are given a task as programmers. And what is our task? The task is that we should create a function that will welcome our students to what? Our Digitech Python training session or training class. So let's put that. This is the task given to us. Create. And all these that we are creating as functions, they are also applications. They are small apps until we get to where we will join all of them together, variable and everything to form the word, the complete word, add or app rather. So create a function to welcome students. to Digitech Zeal Hub Python training. So I'm going to follow those syntax. The first thing I'm going to start by doing is to declare the keyword DEF. Then after that, I will now write the function name. The name of your function should be driven by the intention. What do you want to do with the function? Because when you are developing a complex application that will require too many functions, I hope we are still here. Sorry, I was out before. All right. So when you are developing a complex application, which is going to be sequence of function, that is, you are going to create different functions. All these applications that you see that are working perfectly is not one function. It's actually a collection of different functions, communicating together. And that is why sometimes when you are trying to run an app, you see that function A must have given it part, waiting for function 2 to take it over from him. And then when he discovered that function 2, maybe something is wrong, something is missing, then the app will get stuck. So at that point where you are going to create different apps, which is like the collection of different functions, you have to make sure that your functions have descriptive names. A name that once you see it, you know that, oh, this is a name that once you see it, you know that, oh, this is the function created for this or that. So that is why I'm saying that when you get to that aspect where you are naming your function, make sure that you give a name. Look at the task. We have to create a greeting message. So I will say the name of my function is greet. And I told you that the name of the function should always go with what? The parenthesis bracket. And I'm going to explain that now. That parenthesis bracket, which is also known at times as function brackets, is what enable you to give the function either arguments or inputs or parameter. We are going to go into that. Now, when it is left empty, this is a function without parameter or without input. So we are going to grow gradually. So I want to start with function without giving them input, and then we'll get to function with what? Parameter. So any function that have parameter definitely will require an input. So once we get to that aspect, you understand why I'm using these two terms. And then once you have declared the name of the function, then the calling bracket that I mentioned comes in, and then you can now expand it. Mind you, indentation matter when you are defining what function. What do I mean by indentation? You can see that as I press enter, right, this particular cursor did not come to the alignment of the definition keyword. Instead, it's aligned with the name. If it comes here, it's different thing you are saying, and it will generate error. And we have established that from the beginning that Python does not tolerate indentation. So you have to make sure that your code is properly structured, that you obey all the rules of hierarchy of your code. That is where indentation. So what hierarchy is actually telling you and I, that what you want to write, they are at the same level with this, not at the same level with this. So once you bring the cursor here, you are saying that those things you want to write should be in the same level with this. And if they are not supposed to align with that, then it will generate error. So what do I want? We just look at print command. So let me use print to output something. So I'll say print string, print string. For example, print string. which is welcome. Sorry. Welcome to Digitech Zeal Hub Python training. So we are still having some error here. I'm trying to find out what is the cause of that error. Now, the cause of the error is that in Python, sorry, I was misquoting it for other programming language. In Python, this calling bracket is denoted with colon, like this. So that settles it in Python. So once you put, if you're to be other programming language like Java and whatever, it will have that calling bracket. But in Python, you just indicate it what? The column. That column means what? Whatever that is coming is going to form the code what? Block. And what are you outputting? What are you outputting? Welcome to this. Now, there is something about function. Function must be called. You know, I mentioned it before. Function must be called. To react. Functions must be called to react. So which means that if I run this code now, let me run the code. If I run this code, you can see it. The function has been executed successfully, but it did not display anything. Why? Because the function exists, but you have not asked it to react. And the way you ask the function to react is to call that same name with the parenthesis, because this is a function without parameter. So, and at what level you should call the name? The name should not be called at the level of what? The name. The name should be called at the level of what? The declaration. Because just like they are mates. Because this is stating start, while what you want to do now, it will represent what? End. So if you are calling the function, you just call greet the way it was declared like this. So if I run this code now again, you see that what this time around is going to output something. Welcome to what? I hope we are still together. So I'll give us a few minutes to perform the same task before I proceed. So create this same function. Let's see if you'll be able to implement it and get it working before we proceed, just for us to master the syntax. So it's a class work start now. Once your own is ready, you let me know so that we can check your code. Let's proceed. I'll come back to the rest later. All right. Okay, so let's look at function. So this is a Python function without parameter. Whenever here is empty and you just simply call without giving anything, that is a function without parameter. Now let's look at function with parameter. Python function. Python function with parameter. Python function with parameter. So what is parameter in function creation? What do we mean by parameter? Right? So let's look at that, what parameter is all about. Okay, so function with parameter, rather, let's say function, Python function. Yeah, function with parameter. Let me put it here. Function with parameters or let's say parameters. I think what we need to understand is parameter. Parameters are variables. Parameters are variable pass. They are variable pass into a function. Variable to customize it. So that is parameter. Now, what we are saying is this. Let's look at the structure. From the structure, we will understand what we are talking about. So if I want to create a function with a parameter that will accept my name, so what I'm going to start with, remember, you have to start by declaring the function using the keyword, and then follow by the name of the function. So let's say this one is greet2, and then you open the bracket. Now, in the brackets, you specify the parameter. That's why we are saying that this is a Python function with parameter, and they are like variables. Logically, they are like variables that are declared at the level of the function declaration. So if I say name, because I want a function that when I am calling it, I will send my name to the variable. So when you write it inside here, it's good as you just created an empty variable that is going to receive its value when you are calling the function. And that value that's going to receive will now be known as the input. So anytime you create a function with a parameter, then it means when you are calling it, you have to supply the input. What are we saying? For example, now, so I can come here and say, okay, this is a function with parameter, and what is it going to do? Welcome Prosper, or welcome the name of the student. All right, so the way I'm going to do it is that I will say print. I will say print, then I will acknowledge that particular string that is going to be printed out with the name that I'm going to give as a string, because it's not stored anywhere. So I'll put the welcome here. Now you will come outside this and put a comma. That is, you are going to print somebody's name, you add it to welcome. And that name is a variable. So you now reference that name inside. But remember, everything that we have done so far is an empty variable. We have not assigned a value. So when I now come down and I want to call the function, so I'm going to call greet2. Are you getting it now? Then that particular person's name, I will now send it. And when you are sending that name, it should be, if you are sending a number, it should be sent without quotation. If you are sending a string, it should be sent in quote. So I'm sending Prosper. So you can see the difference between this function and this function. This is a function without parameter, and therefore, when we were calling it, we did not send input. Now, this is a function with parameter, and now if we are calling it, we have to supply the name. So what is happening logically here? Let me tell you what is happening at the background. What is happening at the background, that this is an empty container, and as you are calling the function, you want to see welcome name. So what is going to happen is that as you are calling, the name will be sent to what? To this at the point of calling the function. And once it gets here, then from here, it will come down here. So that is the communication that will happen within seconds, that you and I does not know what is happening. That is just the picture of what is going to play out. So now, if I run this function now, see what is going to happen. If I run it, you can see that it will output welcome Prosper. So this is what we call Python function with parameter. This is parameter. Parameters are variables, all right? Now, this is the input. So if in your note, you can sketch it that way. Label this one empty variable or parameter, and then here the variable value, which is being sent to it during calling the function. I hope that is clear. Can I get a response before I allow us to also achieve it for some minutes before we proceed?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm giving us 5 minutes, or 5 minutes is even too much. I'm giving us 4 minutes to execute it before I proceed. Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, now let's take one more example. For this time around, we are looking at function with what? 2 parameter. Function with 2 parameter. Function with 2 parameters. So this one is function with 1 parameter. All right, so let's say I want to output my both name, both my name, my first name, and the surname. So I'm going to start by declaring the function keyword. So let's say this one is greet3. Open your parenthesis bracket, then column, which is representing your calling brackets as against other programming languages. Then here, let's say, remember that we have to supply the 2 empty container because we are going to supply what? 2 input. So the first one, I'll say, okay, let's say first name. So I have to follow that same convention, that naming convention, the comma, let's say surname. All right, so these are the 2 parameter. Then, which means we have created 2 empty container. So when we are calling the function, we supply the 2 names. All right, so I'm going to just say what? Print my names are, I'll put a comma. The first name is, sorry, my names are, the first name the way it is. All right, the comma as well, followed by the surname. And I have the surname there, followed by what? The surname. Is saying error. Is there any mistake with the spelling? Okay, I think it's capital letter S. Surname. Okay. So which one is correct here? Okay, so this is the correct one. Now, let's call the function, follow the indentation, greet 3. So you can see it has even given you the what? The 2 objects you have to supply. Then acknowledge them as string. The first name is what? Prosper, comma. The second name is Aguero. So if you are using IDE like PyCharm, you can see that it has already called their what? Their container. But remember that I did not manually type this so that you don't, if your own is not showing this, so it shouldn't be a problem. So it came out by itself, all right? But what you should focus on is that you should have these 2 names put in a string. So let's run the function and see what we get. So we have what? My names are Prosper Aguero. All right, so let me give us 3 minutes to also achieve a function with 2 parameters. Then once it carries 2 parameters, definitely it will require what? 2 inputs. So I'm giving just 3 minutes on this, please.
And it brought out, like I put great print. It brought out the first name, Prosper, surname, Ewero by itself.
Okay. Or can you hear me now? Please confirm my audio again. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
I'm hearing you.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Clement. At least you are making the class interactive. Others, I want to believe you are working at the background. Now, since it's just introduction, uh, we don't want to take it too far so that we can go and master what we'll be able to cover today. Because we are still going to have about 2 more classes on just function. Because like I said, it's a very wide topic that if you don't understand how to create function, it will be a serious challenge for you to develop application. Okay, so let's quickly look at functions with return values. Function with return value. So what do we mean by return? So the keyword here is what? The return. The keyword here is the return. The keyword here is the what? The return. So how do we define that keyword? We can say a return value is the result a function send back after execution. The results a function sent back after what? Execution. So that is what we mean by what? Return, which is equivalent to that place you are using a print. But let's say you are still going to use print to print the variable that is going to hold the value you intend to what? To get as the result. So let's look at a simple example here. Let's say we want to create a function. Let me put it as a task. Create a function. A function that adds 2 values. So this is just like a calculator. All right, so we'll start by defining the function. And the name is what? Add number. Add underscore number. Then, of course, follow the syntax. So inside this, instead of me starting with the print now, you can see this where I'm using the return what? Key. And then here, you have to also submit the parameter, let's say parameter A and B. So this parameter A and B, just like 2 variables also. So you want to perform a calculation, and it is the return that will send back the value to you. And that is why we will capture them, and then we will now say the arithmetic calculation will happen within the return. What do you want to return? What value do you want it to send back to you? So you now say the value of A plus the value of B is what I want you to send back. All right, knowing that these are empty, these are empty variable, and at the point of calling the function, we are going to send their value. This A can be 10, this B can be 20. So once you get this value, it should what? Perform the arithmetic and return the answer. So we can decide to create a local variable. A local variable is a variable that is created within a function, which cannot be used outside the function. We have a local variable, we have a global variable. So in this context now, we say, okay, to make the work easier. So I'm creating a variable called what? Result. And I'm equating it to what? To the calling of the function. What are we supposed to do to call the function? We just say what? Add this. So what is now, you know that it is during calling the function that we normally send the input. So what we are doing is that we are calling the function and we are sending the input, which are going to be the number, so that the number can go into the parameter, and then the return will perform the arithmetic, then store it in result, and then we can now print results. So we now say, okay, I want it to add what? 90 should go into A and 80 should go into B. So now it will not run because I have to display it. And remember that we said that in Python, whenever you want to display anything, you have to use what? The print command. So that is why we are using this logic of storing it here so that we can have a variable to print. So here I can now say what? Print. I can now say print. What am I printing? I'm printing what? Result. So if I run this code now, it will return the addition of what? Those two numbers, as you can see here. So what is the concept we are trying to involve here is the word, the return keyword. Because you see some programmers, they will use this return keyword to perform some arithmetic or some tasks, and then within the function before sending back. So which means that this performed the calculation and held it to itself. So what you are doing now is that, okay, that which you have, send it to me. And that is what we just derived now. If you have any question, you can ask. If there's no question, I will also give us time to implement this. I don't want things to be accumulated because this is, we are beginning to enter the intermediate and the advanced aspect. That is the first phase of advance of Python. So we need to make sure that when we attend these classes going forward, let's learn to be doing some things in the class so that you understand some of these things. Because if you are leaving everything till you will practice, it might overwhelm you. And that means that you may end up not being a good programmer, because programming is about practicing. As you are learning, as your instructor is doing it, you are doing it. The 50% of what is teaching you goes into your memory immediately. And then you can just use the remaining time to research more. Why some of you that are not practicing here now, we use the whole time to master this. Why those that are doing this in the class, we use the remaining time, the time they will have allocated to this, to go and research more on the topic. So I'm giving us 3 to 4 minutes to replicate the same thing. Once you are done with yours, kindly notify me. All right, so let's proceed. All right, so let's look at another concept. Let's see if we can just conclude on this. Let's look at function with default parameter. Function with default parameter. All right, so now let's define it. What is function default parameter? Default parameters allow you to to assign a default value. Allow you to assign a default value if no argument is provided. If no argument is what? Provided. So you see it now, that is, it has something to fall back to where you fail to submit your value. Let's look at the example here. So I'll define my function. Let's say this one is grade 4. Then inside this, I'm defining the default parameter as name. Sorry, name equals to students. So you can see the declaration is different now. It's as if we have already set a value into it. Unlike the other one that we're just calling the parameter without that we're passing the value through what input. Though we can still set what the value, but in case you forget to set your input while you are calling it, it will print whatever you must have what program as default. That is the essence of this default structure. So if I come here now and say print, let's say what, hello, print hello, then, and I submit what, name. So now let's call the function, which is grade 4. So if I run this code, you see that what, hello students. So which means that if I change this to someone rename, let's say okay. So if I run it, you see that what, it will print what, hello okay. You know that ordinarily whenever you define parameter in your function, you must supply what, the input while calling it. But now because we have set this to standard, when the user fails to fill it, then or send the input, it will take that one. But let's try in a situation whereby we are giving what, our own input. So if I'm giving my own input, let's see whether which one is it going to print. Let's run the code. You see that what, it will now ignore what, the default, and print the one you supply. So this one is just like a backup, that in case you fail to supply the input at the point of calling the function, then it should fall back to what? Instead of displaying nothing, it should display whatever you have set as default. I hope that is clear. Can I get a response, please?
Yes.
Okay. So let me give us 3 minutes to also achieve this. Remember, this session is just for us to lay foundation on functions. So we are still going to have different section on it. And then, like I told us when we started, this is going to lead us to some projects. So we start working on some projects, because at least from variable to function, we should be able to start creating a simple or basic applications to solve minor challenges. And then we all right, so let's look at function are keyword arguments. So there's a concept that we want to look at here. Let's look at keyword arguments. Keyword argument. Keyword argument. So how do we define keyword arguments when you are dealing with function? So we can say keyword arguments allow you to specify arguments by name. So you're going to see the difference from the structure. You understand what we are talking about. So let's say we want to create a function. You see, this argument, this is argument. You can see it now. This is exactly what we want to write. You know, just that because I'm using Python on IDE, that is why it sends it itself. But ordinarily, it's trying to tell us that I am interpreting this function with what? Its argument. So, but let's see how we can program it manually. Now, what we are saying is that, let's say I have a function definition called, let's say, students information. Student information, info, student information. Now, inside student information, I would like to collect the student name, the student age as the two parameters. Now, and I will print them. So I'll print, let's say I'm printing what? Name. Name is and I'm printing what? Age. Sorry, I'm printing name. Name, we print name. I'm also printing age. Age, we output what? Age. Age, we output age. Okay. So I'm looking at where is the error? Say all illegal target for variable annotation. This is name. This is age. Okay, yes, this particular column should come inside the string. I think my spelling of age is correct. Then I need to put a comma. I think what is missing is a comma. Good. Once you see error like that, you have to try and debug it. So now I want to call the function following the indentation, which is student. Now, here, you printed the argument here. The argument you have set is what? Name. But you see, the good part of this is that when you are printing, you can change the order. That is the importance of this argument declaration method. You know, we have it name and age. So I can decide to say, okay, I want to print age first. And I will say, well, set age equals to, that is what happened the other time. Set age equals to what? 20. Are you getting it now? Then I'll put a comma. I'll say, well, set name equals to, because name is a string, I'll say set it to what? A string. Let's say what? A lower. So, but you can decide to go this way where you use this argument method, or you just follow the way we have been doing it and allow Python to factor that out. by itself. So if I run this code now, let's see what we are going to get. You see, it printed what? The information, just the order you presented them. That name should take the name, the one you set to name, and then the age from the age. So this method is called what? Argument. Keyword what? Argument. Keyword argument. So some programmer will use this logic, while some will just go with the what? The one we did earlier on. So if you have any question, you can ask. If you don't have question, we are going to stop here because most of us, we are not verifying this, so it doesn't get too much. But make sure you get here at the same time, because it is the first class in function. So we don't usually take it too far because it's a major component of programming. We need to take time to digest it. So let every one of us, your assignment is for you to write your code to implement everything we started with down to where I am, and then also screenshot and send across. So in our next class, we are going to take it further to learning how to create arbitrary argument function. And then we'll now advance, probably we'll take some real life projects that we can achieve with function. And then before we go to Python control structure, which is the main aspect of programming that determine its order of execution. Do we have any question, please? If you don't have question, then we can end it here. Any question, please? Okay. No question. Okay, so like I told us last time, we are kickstarting the kids coding and the teenager coding. Like I told us, that it comprises of HTML and CSS, and they will wrap it up with Python. Started yesterday, and it's going to continue on Tuesday. In case you have any of these holiday students, GSS3, SS3, that are looking forward to acquire test skill that will increase their level of creativity and their problem-solving skills. That is the session, and they can learn. The good thing is that they can learn from their various locations, so they are not location bound. All right. And then on Friday, this Friday, we are also kickstarting the computer basic training. Like I told us, there are some of us here that might even need to subscribe into that section. Though the amount they are paying is a person is paying 20,000 for early bird, and then for late registration they are paying 40,000, and they are learning Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. We all know that we are supposed to know all this before you are going into even programming. It will help you when you start working in an office. So if you need this knowledge, for those of us that are here, I will just, if you can, identify yourself as our existing student that want to also take advantage of that training. If you can prove yourself by chatting me, I will allow you to pay just 10,000 naira. That is going to run for 12 classes, and it will be spread across 6 weeks. That means what? We shall be meeting twice in a week. So even if you will not be able to join it live, your subscription will offer you access to the video sequentially. All right. So in case you have anyone around you, this is not for teenagers only. Teenagers are free to join. Adults are. For so long you want to get yourself grounded on the basis of computer, that is the class to be. We have about 70 persons already in the group, and our Zoom can take only 100 per meeting. So if you want to be among them, contact me on time, or whoever you are recommending. And some of those students that that wanted to join at the Python session, you can tell them to join that teenager session because they stand to learn more languages. They are going to learn how to build web application using HTML and CSS, and then including Python basic. The only thing is that they will not go as far to your level of Python because your Python here covers basic and intermediate, but their own will only cover basic because of the time factor. So ladies and gentlemen, this is where we hang it. So just in case you come across this video, you want to reach out to us at Digitech Zeal for us to also train you like this via live Zoom across different computer programs like cybersecurity class is still active every Mondays and Wednesday. The class has been going well. We have people there already, but we just started. We are still at the elementary. Victor, you want to ask question? You can ask your question. So you can reach out to us via this number 070. So this is my direct WhatsApp number, 69665919. You can also please make sure you like, you comment, and share this video so that you can go viral. There are a lot of persons that, please, for those of us that are watching, whenever you are done watching the video, learn to share it or like it, please. Like our student, please, we encourage you to share the video. Let others know that they can learn program like this here. So in case you want to reach out to us via Zoom, of course, it is through the YouTube page you're able to come across this. But you want to officially check us out on YouTube, you can go to Digitech. Digitech. Call me Victor to answer you. Maybe you have used the message section. All right, so let me check. Okay, Victor is asking what about our double class? Yes, it's something that the entire class we agreed on, but I'm not sure that the persons here right now, they are mature for that double class. So if you can still communicate via the group, if you feel that we should start, but I told you that the double class will not commence even in this month. It should be from August, but when we get to August, I'm still going to remind us if we feel we should start having it a double section. Okay, all right. So thank you very much. So see you Sunday. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, sir.